Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we take a closer look at Behren Morton's day against the Houston Cougars and also a walking wounded refresher. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to see you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. And thanks for making us your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more right now. As a new customer, you can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again, my man, and still basking in the glory of a Big 12 win as the Red Raiders down the Cougars of Houston 49-28 on Saturday. Hope you caught our reaction episode yesterday. We'll get into some different things here today that we didn't discuss on Sunday. And Chris, one of those things I wanted to kick off the show with before we get to a health and wellness report and we talk about just some bounces of the ball that also aided maybe in a little good luck for Texas Tech on Saturday in getting that win. We got to talk about Behren Morton. We didn't spend a ton of time really running down what he was specifically as a quarterback yesterday. There were so many other things you did as a team that helped get you that win. And specifically what you did as an offense, I was really glad to see, Chris, because I felt like somehow, however you did it, you were able to avoid putting it all on your quarterback to go out and win the game. A quarterback that was making his first start of the year and is still relatively inexperienced overall. So I was glad for that. But at the same time, what did the quarterback do? Here to ask you that question. And I would say for my money's worth, he did a lot of things that were within himself. I don't feel like there was much pressing or trying to do too much. Pretty good day all around.
Yeah, I think you summed it up very well right there at the end, because I think if you listen to what Joey and Zach Kitley said last week, really, repeated, man, looking at his West Virginia game, he really just tried to do too much, whether that was trying to make the home run throw, trying to get the thing going, trying to get into certain plays, trying to move out of the pocket and go deep instead of throwing underneath, whatever. I don't know all the minutia there, but I think and people get triggered when you hear this phrase or it termed this way. And I think you'll get what I'm saying, but I think he managed the game well. I think he managed the game well. He never put you in harm's way. He didn't take any unneeded chances and try to force anything. These are all great things. Okay. I thought that, and I think they would tell you that they ran the ball more because he hadn't thrown any passes all week. I mean, this is a young man that Behren didn't attempt to pass outside until the game kicked off at 2:30. I think he didn't attempt to pass until what did we say? Like about 1:40 p.m. Yeah. Just to warm up. And that's pretty tricky, man. When you just don't know what you don't know. You want to assume, and we all know what that word will do to you. But I think they wanted to really get that ground game going. And again, I would say this. There's gonna come a time, man, where I don't care if you want to run it, if I want to run it, if Taj Brooks wants to run it, if Caleb Rogers wants to run it, if Joey wants to run it, if the quarterback wants to run it, that it's just not going to be there, or it's not going to have some, really much success. And I don't know, when that necessarily will be. Maybe never. But there's going to come a time when Behren or whoever is playing quarterback, okay, but it's going to be Behren, hopefully. They're going to have to go win you a game. You can't just This is a league, man, where your quarterback's going to have to be special at times and go make some plays. And look at the best teams in the country, man. And there's a common theme there. We touched on that yesterday when we were talking. But I thought Behren played a really good game. It was very well played. It was clean, and he's throwing blocks, so he showed you the competitor in him. Yeah. And he never was in harm's way.
Yeah, I like that maybe most of all, that we saw a pretty clean jersey at the end of the day. Do you feel like the game was called in a way to either compensate for the fact that he's just getting thrown in there again and maybe not like with wet feet just yet, or the health factor also? Is it all of the above? Because I kind of wonder, I asked you this a little bit yesterday, but I kind of wonder as the weeks go on and hopefully Behren Morton remains healthy enough to be the starting quarterback. As the weeks go on, I wonder if we do kind of see it opened up a little further. What do you really feel like went into the way that Wes Kitley and the offensive staff called that game?
I think it's answer C. You know, and I was always told, like, whenever you're taking one of those, what was like the SAT or the ACT or whatever, and you just, man, I'm just not real sure. Always go with C. You just
72% chance.
Yeah, you always circle in the C on the old Scantron or whatever it was back in the day with the number 2 pencil. I don't even know if they have those anymore, but
I think we're on number 3 now.
It's like when all else fails, man, just circle C, man, and hope for the best.
Yeah. Well, a combination of several things, probably.
That's what I think. Yeah, I think I think you thought you could run it on Houston a bit. I think that Houston, because Dana Holgorsen had even said much of last week, we know they're going to try to run it. I mean, he kind of was expecting it, and so you weren't real sure what they were going to show you defensively. But I think you thought you could run it against them. So part of it's matchup. Part of it is because, you're trying to like take some load off of your quarterback, which you haven't seen throw a pass in 7 days or 6 days. Which I can only imagine the mental games that you go through that week, and everybody could tell you he'll be fine. It's going to look okay. But that's just got to be strange when Jake Strong's back there taking all the first team reps, all practice, every practice, and all that stuff, which this is going to be ultimately good for Jake Strong, I think. Sure. And I think that, Behren also was smart within the offense. You played the game, okay? You didn't try to get outside of the game and kind of, again, try to do too much. And I think all of it kind of combined was a pretty, but 14-22 for, what was it? How much did he?
181, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, 161. There's going to be times where that's not anywhere near enough. Now granted, the flip side is Donovan, he threw for like 325 and it wasn't enough either, but because they didn't have a lot of the run game. I don't know if that's Waco on Saturday night. I don't know if that's Kansas State the following week at home, but at some point, and I think Behren will be ready to answer the bell, but I just think majoring in the run game, I'm not ready to say, oh, this is what you are yet. I think it can work. I think you will. I think that what we're seeing, though, is that you will continue to be balanced, and I think it could tilt one way or the other on some weeks, and it clearly tilted more run game this past week. But I thought your quarterback had a lot to do with you being able to do that, and it was kind of fun to see, kind of watch him, because you're starting to see him kind of grow up a little bit. He's starting to mature in front of your eyes. He's a redshirt sophomore. I think people kind of in their brain think but that was his 4th start.
And he ain't no bus driver. We know that.
No, he's not.
Player. So eventually there will be more than what we saw that day. But I think for that day, that was perfect. I'm glad at the end of it was part of a successful recipe. Some other things we don't know, some other things we can't predict week to week, the way the ball will bounce. Now, this is very in-depth expert analysis here, but let me let you in on a little something. If it bounces your way, you make more plays. And to quote the late, great Norm Macdonald, you don't bet on football because the ball ain't round. You don't. What shape is that? You can't name that shape. Oblong? Is that even a shape or just a description? Chris, this was a day where we actually felt like we had to note you got some breaks. You got some lucky bounces, whether it was the block punt right back into the hands of Fungi or whatever you might have on your list. It was a day where it felt like, I don't know, the wind was blowing in your direction a little bit, and you ain't always been there. First, today's episode brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company, changing the non-alcoholic beer game one swig at a time. And it's time once again for your game changer of the week. This week, it's number 28, Taj Brooks, who carried the ball 22 times for 106 yards and 2 TDs, giving him 3 straight games now over the century mark as the Red Raiders down the Houston Cougars 49-28. And just like Taj Brooks, Athletic Brewing Company is changing the game with non-alcoholic beer that actually tastes good. Great tasting, award-winning, and you're going to find more than 50 styles at athleticbrewing.com. But what you're not going to find ever is a hangover with Athletic Brewing Company. Change the game by finding Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic beer at a store near you or online at athleticbrewing.com. And right now, first-time customers can get 15% off your first online order by using our code LOCKEDON. The code LOCKEDON for 15% off your first online order. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company and athleticbrewing.com, fit for all times. You got some breaks. You got some lucky bounces, whether it was the block punt right back into the hands of Funchie or whatever you might have on your list. It was a day where it felt like, I don't know, the wind was blowing in your direction a little bit, and you ain't always been there.
It's like, like you go back to like the Oregon game, like that one of those final plays, and it's just the ball just kind of, there's somebody right there, pick six, and like, the interception that you had, and if you're an inch further in the playing field, it's an interception, and maybe that alters the game, and we're having a completely different conversation right now. But instead, that they determine either he doesn't complete the catch or he's out of bounds or whatever. Talking about Malik Dunlap in the end zone, you've doinked a field goal, I believe at Wyoming, into your own backside of one of your linemen, and then hit the goalpost and all those things. So this Saturday, because I'll tell you why I wanted to bring this up, because this past Saturday, they doink a field goal, so you get a lucky bounce. And I thought it was a fairly sneaky big play in the game.
Yeah.
That, you held them off the scoreboard at the end of the half, because who knows what momentum they get. But like the middle 8 that Joey talks about a lot, you dominated it. You absolutely dominated it, those middle 8 moments, and part of that, or middle 8 minutes, because they missed the field goal was part of the reason. But like the block punt, I'm like, of course. But like when it's going your way, it's just going your way, because that could have easily, blocked and then bounced out of bounds or bounced forward or whatever, and you don't capitalize, and then you don't score off of that drive theoretically. Because I remember in that Oregon game, you didn't you get an interception and then you basically did nothing with it.
So.
I mean, and so it's just funny because that ball, you block it and it's just boop right there, right to Lubbock, and then 7 points. Like here we go. And it's just kind of because I had somebody that played a long time in the NFL standing on the sideline. That has been around a lot of NFL locker rooms and programs and all that, and in college too. And he goes, last year with this team, it's funny because you could have had, one guy doing the wrong thing, but the ball didn't find him. Yeah. Like you could have had 10 out of 11 guys doing their thing, and then the one guy not doing their thing, but the ball didn't find him. This year, for whatever reason, it's like the ball is finding that guy. He goes, it's funny how the sport works sometimes. And I don't know. I just thought, I was like, yeah, because I mean, that's the point about being like, but Saturday, the ball bounced your way, and Dana Holgerson's got to be like, what, because you just, you get outgained, and there, it wasn't perfect what you did. You couldn't stop them in the first half, and yet you win by 3 touchdowns. You win and you cover, which is a fan's dream most of the time. So, but yeah, ball's bouncing your way, man. And it's just funny how sometimes on a Saturday, man, it could go your way, and other times it cannot, as we've seen too.
Yeah, and shout out to Patrick Mahomes, dasher of wagers dreams within the last 24 hours. What up, Patrick? And also shout out to Summit Hoke, rocking a Texas Tech jacket.
He pulled this Roderick Thompson.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Just to prove we're on the up and up, boys. Like that's what it was all about. Just to prove we're on the up and up here in Kansas City. I mean, honestly, Chris, I think clearly there's luck involved in anything and everything, or a lucky bounce or break or whatever it might be. But as far as you can go in making your own luck, that begins with great effort, in my opinion. And a team that gives great effort is always going to find some breaks, I feel like, at least. And I don't know that that's some mathematical equation I could spell out for you on a chalkboard, but it's a feeling. And maybe it's based off of, sports history, because I think when you talk about like turnovers or how does a guy always find his way around the ball, he's probably finishing plays with great effort. Fungi, you block a punt. How do you find your way to that ball bouncing right in your hands? You continue to give great effort and trying to strain and get to wherever it is, because it was kind of a strange trajectory. I think it kind of went straight up and then sort of back over towards that south end gate. So either way, I think we can talk about, what's in the water, what's in the air. You get some lucky breaks. I think a team giving great effort is far more likely to find some of those breaks than not. But again, same time, sometimes it's just the way the ball bounces, and was glad to see it go the right way for the good guys on Saturday. All right, Chris, now get out your chart. I don't know if you want to put on maybe a stethoscope or something, but we may need a little extra time actually for this portion of the program. The Health and Wellness Watch. And I honestly feel like it got better most recently, so it's maybe not at the worst spot that it's been all year long. Because we did see some guys back on the field that we hadn't seen in a little while or were dinged up the week prior. But what are we looking at when we're looking at the walking wounded sheet here, Chris? And I really just wonder, man, from your perspective, as you spent so much time covering these things, has this been a unique year? Does it just feel like it's kind of overloaded, or is this just the way it goes within a football season? First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook of Locked On. And the NFL season is on and popping, and the only place to be in the center of all the action is with America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets back, guaranteed. But there's more. All customers, new or old, who bet $5 are going to get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Translation, right now is the best time to join FanDuel by downloading their safe, secure, and easy-to-use app where you can bet on anything and everything. And when you're a winner, you're always paid instantly with FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon and take advantage of their NFL kickoff offer that you can't afford to miss. From FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. What are we looking at when we're looking at the walking wounded sheet here, Chris? And I really just wonder, man, from your perspective, as you spent so much time covering these things, has this been a unique year? Does it just feel like it's kind of overloaded, or is this just the way it goes within a football season?
That's a great question. I think it certainly is talked about, I think, more than it maybe used to be. Because I think there was a time, I hate to always quote Mike, but there was a time when I was doing this and he was so sick of being asked about injuries that he basically was just like, here at Texas Tech, we don't have injuries. Next question. He just wasn't going to engage. Yeah. He wasn't going to get into it with anybody. He wasn't going to tell, get into the weeds as far as okay, this guy's dealing with this or that. He just wasn't going to do it, wasn't going to address it. Felt like, whatever, that was his. So it just, and if you couldn't ask about it, because he would just go, yeah, we don't have injuries. What else you got? Guys walking around on a boot, guys walking around with a cast. Oh, that's an illusion. You're not really seeing that right there. No injuries here.
I think one of the things in the Joey McGuire era that's interested me about the injury conversation was how he points out sort of that he doesn't want to give the opponent, a roadmap of where to ding this guy up in the next week's game. And maybe beyond just being annoyed, that has something to do with it as well. But I hadn't really considered that over the years.
Yeah, and what I think Joey's pretty transparent with everything, and I think part of most people love it. I think some people get irritated about it, or they use it against him. It's like, well, you told us all these things, whatever it was, and then they use it against him. But it's like, you can't. You either want a coach to be refreshing and honest and upfront, or you don't, or maybe you just want a coach speak and all that guy is what he said, I think, last week. But Joey's pretty transparent with injuries, but ultimately what he would prefer, and we'll get into specifics here in a second, but what Joey would prefer that they do is a conference policy on like day before or morning of, like these guys are out or questionable or whatever, like some sort of, kind of like NFL type stuff. I don't know how you get every coach to abide by that and remove the gamesmanship from it, but he would prefer just everybody just be upfront with it. Just show us your hand, kind of thing. Turn the cards over, show us your hand. Here we go. Here's mine. Away we go. But I don't know if we'll ever get there or not. But I think he's kind of pushed for that and asked for that. And he's been fairly, upfront about his preference there. As far as this Saturday goes, or this past Saturday, yeah, you had no Josiah Pierre, you had no Jordan Brown, you had no Duda Banks, and you obviously had no Tyler Shuck. I don't expect to see Tyler Shuck for the rest of the season. I just don't. I think he's probably played his last snap for Texas Tech. I think he's still around and he's still on the team. He's still, if you saw his Twitter account, he's like shouting out Cameron Valdez. Again, still very widely respected within that locker room, and that's not going to change. I expect Pierre and Brown, I think both should be good to go this week. Again, quote unquote, think. So we'll see. Neither one of these are serious injuries, but they were enough to keep him out of this past Saturday's game. Desperately need him, in my opinion. Yep. Then you have Duda Banks is, I think, a week or so away. He's been missing for the last couple of weeks. That would offer up some depth on the interior of the defensive line, because they actually suited up a young man that we have never discussed on this show until right now. Amir Washington was one of your signees this past class. He's a true freshman. He was coming off some hand surgery, and I think he had been practicing in the last week or so. And so you're a little bit thinner there because of Blake Burris is out. He is somebody that had been in that rotation or the back end of that rotation. So you'd taken enough hits there that you needed a fourth and a fifth guy. And then we also know the injury issues with Quincy Ledet from the week before, but he actually played. In the game, and I think is okay. But you lost Rabbit in this game, which I think, as Joey, I think we talked about it last week, Joey would tell you that's the best guy we've got on defense right now. He's playing the best football of anybody we've got. He quarterbacks it, and Chapman Lewis got inserted in there, and Chapman Lewis, I think, did good, but he also, I think, got turned around and lost one of those receivers on one of those long touchdown passes, right? I think they're in the second quarter. But they're hopeful that he will be back. I know hope is not a strategy, but I think they're hoping that he will be back. It's some back tightness, I think, according to Coach McGuire. And then I don't know what the status is of Mason Tharp. He's obviously playing through an injury, has been. He went to the locker room mid-third quarter, maybe, give or take, and did not return. And so I don't know what the issue there is, but that's not good. And I think Baylor Cupp is playing through an injury as well. So it's just this is what you're dealing with. And I don't know if I've missed somebody. Tyler Owens.
That's another one on my mind. We saw him back, but he's been kind of in and out last few weeks.
And he just, to his credit, he just throws his body around with reckless abandon, man. But every time when he gets up, it's like it's kind of slower or
right.
but he's going to give you all he's got. And so I think he's playing through, kind of a quad and then a hip and just all kind. But I just think he's straining, is what coaches say. When I know a team is playing really hard, they are straining. They are giving everything that they've got. It's a grind. And I think you're seeing that with Tyler Owens right now. So you just kind of hope that he can continue to be okay, because he makes such a difference on the back end, man, especially in the run game. He's just so physical and all those things. But I don't know if I've covered it completely, but I think so. Gave you a pretty good picture. Yeah.
It's no quick look. That's for sure. It's a list that you're kind of keeping an eye on. And so those guys, again, we saw back in action. So dinged up or not, hopefully going to be in good enough shape to be in action again in Waco. I wonder though, Chris, you mentioned maybe Rabbit's the answer. If it can't be the quarterback, and I could just say, man, you get this guy healthy for the rest of the year, do you go Josiah Pierre? Do you go Rabbit? Do you go Owens? I think about Pierre, and I'm like, man, as soon as he's off the field, freshman in all directions. So I don't know. I'm like, is he more important to be back in the mix if I could only choose one? But then you talk about Rabbit, quarterback in the defense. Mason Tharp, Cameron Valdez, some impact as well felt in recent weeks. Who do you think really is that guy that's like, man, so many things change when they're not there? I'm inclined to maybe think we're talking defense. Who would you go with?
Yeah, I would tell you Rabbit is an MVP type guy on this team just because of how good he's been playing. We've seen like the Senior Bowl, like using him as an example. Joe, the head coach, says I think he's playing the best out of anybody on defense right now, and then I think the reason that I put him at most important is because he quarterbacks it, man.
Yeah.
I think he's getting guys lined up. I think he knows the calls. I think he's been a big reason why you've maybe limited some of the explosives that you came into the season going, we got to clean this up. We can't keep giving up long plays. Not that they've been perfect, but I think that they've, and I just think a lot of him. But I think, that's an MVP type, and it's an under the radar at some level too, because I don't know if enough people, realize, But yeah, the answer is all the above. I mean, you really just need you need all these cats, man. You're not you've got some depth, and the depth doesn't necessarily fall off, off a cliff depending on the certain positions and stuff. But you just want to put your best foot forward, and obviously with your quarterback situation, you're thinner there, and that's not going to change the rest of this season. But I would probably say Rabbit, and Pierre has been great.
Yeah,
Pierre's been great, but I would probably go. I'd probably go Rabbit.
It's really just one of those things with Pierre. Like I said, you've already lost a frontline guy in Rodriguez. Pierre's not in the mix, and we saw this for ourselves. All of a sudden, you're looking out there and you're seeing Dingle and Roberts and thinking, "Wow, what is this? The senior year of high school, or where are we at here?" Because that's not what you anticipated.
Well, and with Rabbit, you go from that to Chapman Lewis, the true freshman.
Well, and I would say I think Valdez would be an underrated pick for that question also, because as good as the ground game has looked, as good as Taj Brooks looks, what is it like for 3 to 4 months if you don't have that help? It was one of your keys to the game, not only get Taj Brooks going, but find him some help. The dude runs like a bull, and that's going to come with some shots, whether he's taking them or delivering them. Talked about pass protection, all the things we've run down. I think Valdez or a second running back is also an underrated pick for that kind of question, because it's going to take all hands on deck. There's no doubt. And I'm just sitting here fascinated, Chris, with all that we've talked about. And I don't even know if I want to bring it up. Should I even say it out loud? I'm knocking on wood because I'm going to do it anyway. We haven't had to talk about the O-line just yet when it comes to some of that bad luck like we have in some previous years where you're swapping out and no chemistry, no synergy being established.
Funny you say that. Well, no, it's okay.
Did you just get a wire report right now when I said it?
Rusty Stats, he had missed quite a bit of practice last week. And I think, there was, I don't know, some concern with him, but I think, he obviously played. There was a few low snaps and things like that, but I think overall he and they played well. But yeah, knock on wood. I think, you've been able to avoid any issues there, but it's not, it's not all as it seems, but it's pretty close. I think they're all, for the most part, fairly healthy and playing pretty well. So. That
just seems like one of those spots that for a handful of years or longer, there's always something going on as far as a little shuffle, a little swap, whatever we got. And of course, we got it again last year. Hang in there, Rusty. Come on. We need you. Okay. Baylor Bears on our minds as we hear from Joey McGuire coming up later today to kick off the week. I'm sure we'll get some refresher on the injury list from Coach McGuire as well, so we'll have that to consider coming up tomorrow. And we begin to turn our attention to Waco as you take on a team that had one of the most wowing wins of the weekend as they come back from, I think it was 29 or 28 down. At one point in time to win over Central Florida. So plenty of time to get to that. Chris, appreciate your time and insight as always, man. Enjoyed it, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
Absolutely. Keep hope alive, people. Have a good week, and we'll be here tomorrow.
Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Check out our reaction episode yesterday if you haven't caught that just yet. And we hope to see you back here for the next round of Locked On Texas Tech.